welcome back. So today I'm going to show you guys my eyeshadow palette collection. This is not a declutter, this is not anything other than me wanting to sit down and look at all of my eyeshadow palettes and show them to you guys. So I have a lot for one person, but I definitely don't have the biggest collection on YouTube. I'm certainly not trying to be like, ooh, look at what I have with any of this stuff, because the majority of it is super cheap because I'm cheap and I'm broke and it's just how it is. But I love eyeshadow palettes. I love buying them, collecting them, trying them out. It's one of my favorite makeup products ever. So I do have quite a few sitting here in front of me and I don't see myself stopping anytime soon. So let's just go ahead and jump right in, shall we? So I think I'm going to start with like the small eyeshadow palettes and then move up to the big ones. Most of my small eyeshadow palettes are my drugstore palettes. So I'm going to start with these bad boys. These are the Milani Magnifies eyeshadow palettes. So I have Spice and Crimson here. Maybe if I hold them the correct way, you can actually see them. These are honestly the worst packaging. They're so cheaply made with like plastic and nothingness, but it's one of my favorite formulas. And by the way, my wording is going to get very redundant here because I look for the same formula. I go for really powdery, soft, super easily blendable mattes with kind of unassuming shimmers, because I don't like really intense shimmers on my lid unless I'm using like the liquid Stila glitters. So if I get redundant in how I explain these formulas, I'm sorry, it's just how I am, because it's kind of what I look for and it's what I tend to gravitate towards, so it's what I keep in my collection. But these are one of the best drugstore palettes I've ever tried, especially for the price. These are $7 a piece, which I think is incredible and crazy at the same time. Like, they could charge so much more for these. This is obviously trying to be a dupe for the Urban Decay Naked Heat palette, which I said months ago that I was going to do a side-by-side comparison, and I did film that, but I ended up hating the footage because I was in like my weird anxiety issue moment, and I ended up deleting it all. But I will tell you now that in that video, I came to the conclusion that I like this formula way better, which is crazy to me. This one just blended out way better. The pigmentation was better. You could see the gradient of shadows way better than the Urban Decay one. That one just seemed to kind of blend all together, but this one you could really see the different shadows, which it blows my mind. But also I think it's kind of awesome that a $7 Rimmel palette, in my opinion, way beat out a $50 Urban Decay palette. So I really do love this formula. The only thing about these shades I will say is that they tend to go on the eyes a lot lighter than they look in the pan, and brighter. So you just kind of have to be careful with what shade you're putting where, because they do tend to blend out to a little bit of a different shade. God, it is so hot in here and I can't turn on my fan because you'll be able to hear it. It's so bad. Okay, moving on. I'm gonna have to go through these quicker because this is already 5 minutes long and I just talked about 2 palettes. So moving on, I've got my Milani palettes here. I've got all 4 that they've released. I love these. They're, again, one of my favorite ones. I will link any corresponding videos of these products down below, but I have reviewed both of these sets now and I just love them. You've got warm tones, you've got cool tones, you've got all mattes, you've got shimmers. They really do take care of everyone and everyone's needs, and I think that's fantastic. One of the best, albeit one of the most expensive drugstore eyeshadow palettes ever, but totally worth the price in my opinion. And then we've got the Maybelline Lemonade Craze and Soda Pop palette. Can you tell I like sets? I love to continue like collections, so every time they do something like this, I like to pick those up. I raved about this for like a month and a half straight, and I plan on doing the same with this one because this is just a great formula. Super soft and powdery and easy to work with and just beautiful, and I love the fun pops of colors in here. one of my favorites. So next up we've got two, I think both of the Kathleen Lights eyeshadow palettes from ColourPop. So I've got Dream Street and I've got the Zodiac palette. I don't reach for these quite as much as I wish I did, but they're still really great palettes. Like, everyone knows these are fantastic. They are, again, super powdery and blendable and easy to work with. This one definitely intimidates me quite a bit because of all the colors and the not so cohesiveness of it, that it just makes it hard for me to want to play with it, because I'm not super artistic with my makeup and I don't mess around with colors and different shades a lot. I just like makeup and I like putting on makeup, but I don't like experimenting with it, if that makes sense. So as much as I love these palettes, they're not my most reach for, just because they're not super, or at least the Zodiac one isn't super user friendly, in my opinion, with the shades for people that don't use colorful shades. You know what I'm trying to say. The next one is the CoverGirl True Naked Sunset palette. I talked about this before and how much I wasn't blown away by this palette. I need to get rid of it, honestly. It's just, there's not enough shade range in here. The formula didn't blow me away, and it's just kind of like a meh palette. It's kind of expensive for what it is too, but I haven't gotten rid of it yet because the shades are really pretty. And I'm a sucker for an eyeshadow palette. I will say that eyeshadow palettes are one of those things that's very hard for me to get rid of them, because, I don't know, I just have such an attachment to them, and if I like one shade out of the entire palette, I'm like, but I need that one shade because it's beautiful, and then I won't get rid of the entire palette, which makes no sense, but it's how I am. So the next palette is the L'Oreal Paradise Enchanted palette. I've raved about this one for a long time as well. It's one of my favorites. It's super neutral, great for everyday, really easy to work with. As you can see, it breaks really easily because these are really, really soft shadows, but again, I think that leads itself to being very easy to work with, very blendable, and just great for everyday people, especially if you're just getting started in makeup. I think this is a great option for you. Next up, we have a super old school palette. This is the Morphe and Kathleen Lights palette. I don't think anybody talks about this, which is funny. I think this is a really great palette. It's not one of my favorites, but I do really like it, and I love supporting Kathleen, and I don't think I would ever get rid of it just because it was her palette, even though it's not even available anymore, and literally no one talks about it. I think it's really cute, easy to work with, super neutral, and yeah, it's nice. Alright, so this is where we start moving into the more expensive palettes. The next ones I want to talk about are from Huda Beauty. These are her Mini Obsessions palettes. These are one of my favorite, all-time favorite eyeshadow palettes ever. These are, one, just super cute and tiny and compact, super easy to travel with, but the formula in here is super, super nice, just really soft. I love how few shades there are in here. You'll notice I mostly have small palettes because, like I said, I don't experiment a lot with shades, and I'm not very artistic with my eyeshadow, so I tend to get very overwhelmed by big palettes, and I don't really know what shades to pick, so I end up picking like 1 or 2 or 4 shades out of a big palette. So I don't buy those as often because I feel like I'm not getting my money's worth. So mini palettes are my favorite because when there's like 9 shades, it's super easy for me to, you know, get all of my use out of them because I don't get quite as overwhelmed. So I really, really love small palettes, but I love these in particular because, I don't know, I have an attachment to them for some reason. I don't know what it is, but I just think they're really cute, really easy to use, and the formula is really nice. And I haven't tried her big palettes, but I am interested to, and I do know she just announced that she's releasing a new one, so I might end up picking that one up. I don't know. We'll see. I definitely don't need more eyeshadow palettes, but when did that ever stop anybody, right? So I have Electric Obsessions, Mauve Obsessions, Coral Obsessions, and Warm Brown Obsessions. All the warm tones. The next one is the Too Faced Natural Matte Palette. If I can get it undone. This one is super, super cute, but I've said before that I don't think it's worth full price. I think this is definitely something you want to get on sale for like 50% off, 40% off, somewhere in there, because it is just 9 shades. The packaging is really nice, but it's 9 neutral shades. If you pay $40 for this, you're a freaking idiot, honestly. I do really like it. I think the formula is really nice. It's, you know, it's Too Faced. They have a great formula. We all know this, but I just don't think 9 shades is worth $40, in my humble opinion. The last, like, small palette that I have is from Persona Cosmetics. This is their Identity palette. I've talked about this before, and I haven't reached for this one for a really long time because I just find that the shades don't last that long on my eyes. But now that I've found, like, my perfect eyeshadow primer, I definitely plan on picking this one back up again and playing with it more because I freaking loved it the few times that I did get to use it. I think this formula is really, really amazing and stands out to me as one of the best ones I've ever tried, which is definitely saying something. I lied. This is the last small eyeshadow palette. So this is the one from Alyssa Cosmetic. Alyssa. I still can't say it. Am I an asshole for not being able to say this? This is the eyeshadow palette that was created by Gabby on Instagram. She is the makeup artist for Kathleen Lights, and she works at BoxyCharm. But this is the palette that she created, all about Cuba and her Cuban history, and I just think it's really, really a great sentiment, but also it's a great palette. I've mentioned before that I don't love this brown because I find it to be a little patchy in the way that I apply makeup, which is not the perfect way, but I do really like this palette, and I love supporting women in business, so that's an easy keep for me, honestly. So the next palette I really don't use that much anymore, but I keep it around mostly for principle, and that is the Anastasia Modern Renaissance palette. I've gotten a lot of use out of this, which is interesting. It's probably my most used palette and most, like, dirty, abused palette. I mean, every shade in here has a dent in it, which I think is really funny, because I don't use it anymore. But you can, like, look at it and see that I loved this palette. I just find that I don't use these shades quite as much, and if I do, I usually stick to these first, like, 6 or so. I don't play with the pinks and purples quite as much anymore, but I keep it around just because, I mean, it's, like, the OG palette for me in my makeup world. And when I started, like, most people think of OG makeup palettes as, like, the Urban Decay Naked palettes. For me, and when I started, this is my OG palette, and this is what I keep around because, I don't know, it's just a principle thing now. The next one is the Urban Decay Naked Heat. Like I said, I like the Rimmel palette way more than this, but I do really like this palette, and I don't know if I'll be able to get rid of it at any point, but I don't know. Like I said, I have a ridiculous attachment to eyeshadow palettes. It's how I am. I can get rid of literally anything. I can get rid of foundations, I can get rid of bronzers, highlighters, blushes, anything. But you asked me to get rid of eyeshadow palettes, and I'm like, do I have to, though? Okay, had to take a quick break to reapply lip gloss. In case you're interested, I'm wearing the new Fenty Beauty Diamond Milk lip gloss, which I don't know how I feel about it. I kind of feel like I'm in 2002 again, but I don't know. We'll see. Moving on, the next palette is this bad boy, which is still one of my favorite palettes ever. This is the Violet Voss Matte About You Pro palette. How beautiful is this? I mean, this is just beautiful and perfect and amazing. All warm tones, all mattes, which it has my heart, really. I really like this formula. I don't know if I would say it's my favorite formula, but it's definitely up there in the top 5, because again, it's just really easy to work with. It's not as, like, powdery as I usually look for, but I do really enjoy this one. We are nearing the end, I promise. So the next couple of eyeshadow palettes are from BH Cosmetics. I don't even know. These palettes are so odd to me. Okay, so I have this one in the black packaging, which is the Blushed Neutrals palette. And then I have this one in the white packaging, which is the Nueve, probably said that wrong, Neutrals palette, which looks like this. Both of these come with eyeshadows and then a row of blushes as well. I have gotten basically, oh my god, this is so frustrating. I've gotten basically no use out of these palettes. I don't really love the formula. They're okay, but it's not fantastic. I think the blush formula is way better than the eyeshadow formula. And they smell. They smell like legit plastic and glue, and like I walked into like a cheap clothing factory. Like that's what they smell like, which is odd because it's makeup, but they don't smell like chemicals. They just smell like cheap plastic and glue. And it really kind of turns me off. And I've used them a couple times and the formula just doesn't wow me at all. I'm really not impressed by them whatsoever. So they're just kind of sitting in my collection now, waiting for me to decide what to do with them, because I don't really know what to do with them at this point. I don't feel like I've used them enough to give them away, but I don't feel like I want to keep them, so it's odd. The next one is the famous Morphe Jaclyn Hill palette. This is another one that I really just don't get much use out of. This one, along with the beige ones, kind of just get pushed to the back of my drawer and ignored a lot. I like this palette. I think my opinion on it has changed a lot since it first came out. It's definitely not my favorite anymore. It's not my go-to. It's really annoying because I'm really drawn to these like dark, cool tone colors over here. But every time I try and do a look with them, I find that I have no cool tone crease colors, which really annoys the crap out of me because I don't want to do a warm tone crease with a cool toned outer corner because that just looks weird. So it really annoys me because I want to do something other than oranges and reds, and I can't. So I just don't use it, you know? And I'm not one of those people that will pull out like 6 different palettes for one look. Like, I want to sit down, pull out one palette, do my look, and be done. I don't want to have to pull 20 different shades from different palettes to do something, you know? So I just don't. So these 3 kind of just sit at the back of my drawer, not really knowing what to do with them, but I don't know, it's life, I guess. Alright, we are nearing the end, so the next one that I want to talk about is by far the most expensive one in my collection, which is the Natasha Denona Star Palette. There was a long time where I never really pulled this one out. I don't know why, but I just kind of stopped using it one day, but I've recently gone back to it, and it's still my all-time favorite formula. It's also the most expensive that I will ever touch, which sucks, but it's just miles ahead of every formula sitting in front of me right now. This one beats by miles. It's ridiculous. It's so creamy and blendable, and you put in no effort whatsoever, which I love. I wish I hated this palette. I really do. I'm telling you, I wish I hated it, but I don't hate it. I love it, which makes me really want all of her other palettes, which would be like $1,000 in eyeshadow, which I cringe at every time I think about. And the last palette that I wanted to talk to you guys about is my little Z palette here, which is only half full with singles because I don't buy a lot of single shadows. I think they've definitely gone away in the industry, but I do really like these, and I reach for this palette quite a lot. So all of the small round ones are Makeup Geek, which is definitely one of my favorite eyeshadow formulas. Like, every time I use these, I remember why they were so big at one point, because their formula is amazing. It really is super soft and creamy and easy to work with and just great. I need to pick up more because I want to explore their line more. I find it hard to spend money on single eyeshadows. But moving on from those, we've also got these 3 bars, which are from Revlon. These are their just single eyeshadows. I don't know what the hell they're called. I don't even know what these shades are, but I hated the little tiny compacts, so I depotted them. But I don't reach for these quite as much, but I do, especially this green. That's kind of like when I'm really needing a green in my life. I reach for this one because it's the only one in my collection. And then this one, I think is Ofra. I think this is an Ofra shadow, or maybe even a highlighter. I don't know. It has no name on the back. But yeah, that's my little half done Z palette. So those are all of my eyeshadow palettes. I know it's not that big of a collection, but it's also way more than I need. I hope you guys liked today's video. Let me know down below if you saw any of your favorites in here, and I want to know what you guys' all-time favorite shadow formula is, because I'm always looking for more. So I hope you guys liked today's video. I hope you'll subscribe and stick around, watch some of my other videos, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!